All right, we're going to kick things off, guys, as we always do, with our good friends over at Blueberry. This episode of the Busted Wide Open podcast is brought to you by Blueberry. Blueberry offers the best media hosting, accurate listening stats, and their all-new PowerPress Deluxe sites. A no-setup WordPress website for your podcast with all the necessary links to share your show with the world built right in. If you currently produce a podcast and are looking for a better host, or if you're looking to start a new one from scratch, head over to orbitaljigsaw.com/BWO and sign up for the best media hosting and a PowerPress Deluxe site to get your first month absolutely free. That's orbitaljigsaw.com/BWO, or just use the promo code BWO at checkout for your first month absolutely free. And now, enjoy the show.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the only two-time PWG Battle of Los Angeles champion, King Ricochet, and you are listening to Busted Wide Open Podcast.
You're listening to the Busted Wide Open Podcast, dropping the elbow on the hottest topics in sports entertainment and the world of professional wrestling. With your hosts, Nick Howell and Sir Ian Dangerous. Coming to you from the Orbital Jigsaw Network Arena in sunny Southern California. Welcome back to the Busted Wide Open Podcast, but if this is your first time joining the show, I'd like to welcome you to episode 153. My name is Nick Howell.
And I am Sir Ian Dangerous, and we are coming off an absolutely extreme weekend of professional wrestling, Nick. Not only do we have Ring of Honor, we had Takeover Toronto, SummerSlam, the G1. It was a huge weekend of wrestling, but we're here to talk about just two things, and that's SummerSlam and Takeover Toronto.
Yes.
Arguably the biggest shows in America this weekend. They were huge shows, both of them for different reasons. And I'm looking forward to going over all of them with you, Nick. But before that, let's do a little housekeeping, and then we'll get into the meat of the show.
Yes. As always, guys, come join us in the Facebook discussion group, Busted Wide Open discussion group over on Facebook, I should say. You can also follow us on Twitter and Instagram at BWO Podcast, right here on YouTube, live every week, Thursdays at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Make sure you're subscribed at youtube.com/BustedWideOpen and hit that notification bell, because sometimes we go live at different times, like tonight. We're a little bit late tonight because of issues, but you definitely want to be subscribed there, because we have a whole campaign going on where if you can get us to 1,000 subscribers by October 4th, by the time Fox airs SmackDown Live, Sir Ian Dangerous is going to sing Tai Chi's theme song, his entrance song, at karaoke and record it to post on YouTube. We do not want to miss out on this opportunity. Listeners.
I want to add, it's not just karaoke. It's a karaoke night that I host and work.
Right.
I'm the center of attention already. It's just going to make it worse.
Right.
So.
But I even doubled down on that, and I said I think we can get it done by the end of August, and we're halfway through the month. And as you can see at the bottom of the screen, we got a long way to go. So we've got about 50 days left to get to October 4th. To get another 750 subscribers. We can do it. We can do it.
All right.
Just got to spread the word, guys. But yeah, definitely want to hit that goal. And if we can hit it in the next couple of weeks, that means you get to see me sing Nia Jax's entrance song at karaoke as well. And I'll have to find a way to get to LA and do that.
Don't leave me high and dry, kids, please. God, please.
You get a Nia shrine of your own. Oh, and last but certainly not least, we absolutely love our patrons. Thank you guys so much for your support, for being willing to give a little bit of your hard-earned money over to us every single month. It really helps. It's helped us build this brand new streaming setup. As we've continued to evolve the show, we got a couple of months until we're going to go to 2 shows a week. So yes, patreon.com/BWO. Lots of good stuff coming as we get to the final quarter of the year. But Ian, that's enough talk about housekeeping. We have absolutely got to go over and talk about SummerSlam.
Well, as always, we are going to start with the pre-show. which we got surprised by, Nick. We thought there was only going to be one match, possibly two, that we knew of on the pre-show. But last minute, they canceled the Drew McIntyre-Cedric Alexander match from the show and instead gave us a couple of matches we were not expecting at all.
Yeah, where did these come from?
Out of nowhere. They're like the Randy Orton of matches. We got one that we were expecting, which was the Cruiserweight Championship, pulling the curtain again. These poor guys, a championship match.
Ugh.
I mean, at least they're on the card, right? I guess that's the theory here. Oni Lorcan and Drew Gulak had their championship cruiserweight match. And
I mean, the Intercontinental title wasn't on the card. Spoiler alert.
Wasn't at all. Nor was the Raw or SmackDown Tag Team Championships. So I guess they were at least here. It was kind of a meh match. I mean, it was kind of pre-show fodder match, to be honest with you. I expected more out of these guys. That being said, I got exactly what I expected out of this match, and that was Oni Lorcan hitting the crap out of Drew Gulak.
Yep.
Drew Gulak hitting the crap out of Oni Lorcan. And then ultimately Drew Gulak gave him a neck punch. Ref didn't see it. 1, 2, 3. We're done. And Drew Gulak retains. So do you think that's it for Oni Lorcan? Does he have more to do in the Cruiserweight division? Was that his only shot? What's up with Oni right now?
I don't know. He was wearing yellow trunks with black wristbands. Hashtag NXT. I don't think. I think he might be done in the cruiserweight thing. I think this was the end of it. I want to see more Mike Bennett, Kanellis, and Drake Maverick. Frankly, that was the hottest thing to come out of the cruiserweight division this year.
It's kind of sad because it's in a way it's almost proving Vince right. You know, his whole thing was let's put more characters in the cruiserweight division, and he made everyone kind of a gimmick. You know, Drew Gulak was the PowerPoint presentation guy, and Enzo Amore was your champ. And yet here people are saying, I want more of these gimmick kind of guys. So that's kind of a tough line to step to there, Nick. I mean, you're asking for more character-driven stuff, essentially.
Yeah.
In a division that's supposedly about work rate.
Yeah, there's not a lot of story that goes on in the cruiserweight division. So
there's some, but arguably not enough, or that doesn't get enough attention. I mean, I thought that they kind of threw this match together.
Yeah.
Oni had a week to be the contender. So, yeah, I don't know. I think there's places they can go. There's new people that are coming to the cruiserweight division that are exciting, but yeah, they definitely have to build these major matches more. I think, especially given the fact that it's perceived as not having enough character-driven stuff and not being exciting enough from that standpoint, from the sports entertainment standpoint. We both saw that coming, though. We didn't see the match between Buddy Murphy and Apollo Crews coming. That being said, once it was announced, we said, oh, this has got to be furthering the Daniel Bryan, Roman Reigns angle. And sure enough, it was. The match was not about trying to have a Buddy Murphy and Apollo actually have a decent match, although the match they had was fine. But it was about Rowan coming out and beating up Buddy Murphy and saying, keep my name out of your mouth. And the match ended in a no contest. So that was, not unexpected there, I don't think. Once we knew what it was, once we knew that this match was happening, it was not terribly surprising, the outcome.
Yeah, no, not at all. So why are we booking Buddy Murphy, who just had a standoff with Roman Reigns? Where in the hell did Apollo Crews come from? That's my question.
Someone who could have a match with him, who's capable, and they could have an exciting match for the time that they had, and they did. It was kind of fun, but what I'm more worried about is at what point do we start positioning Buddy Murphy as being an ass kicker again? Because that guy, when he was coming out in the cruiserweight division, it wasn't just that he was fighting smaller guys. It was just his presence. The guy's presence, he felt like an ass kicker.
Yep.
But now you've had him get beat up and tossed aside like garbage 2 weeks in a row or 2 shows in a row. That's not a good look for him.
No.
So fingers crossed that they rehab him somehow or have other plans for him or something, because right now this is not a good look.
No, it's not. And he had one of the best cruiserweight reigns I might have ever seen. It was awesome. Like having him and him going back to winning it in Australia, that's not a Heidi goal to achieve. That's the best cruiserweight in the WWE, but I mean, he owned that and he walked out with the swagger and just carried it. And we didn't they even changed his music.
They changed his music for the show. Oh, it was awful. Like what? Oh God, why did they change his music? His music was great. It went like. dubstep is dead. Let's call a spade, but it still sounded badass when he came out.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, I agree.
He embraced the techno Viking, I would say.
Yeah, it was very impactful.
Right.
Before we move on, Rowan shirt watch, anyone?
Yes.
Iced Earth.
Don't know this one.
Classic. No, they're fantastic. If you like Iron Maiden, you'll like Iced Earth. They're great. They're a little harder than Iron Maiden, but they're fantastic. And then we had a segment. Elias came out to get that old sports team heel heat on the crowd. Once again, knocking the Toronto Blue Jays and them not having a Stanley Cup. And that's the typical stuff, trying to get that Seattle Heat back. When who should come out to defend the honor of Toronto? But Edge? What? Edge not only came out to an enormous pop, including from myself.
I popped.
When
I started hearing it was so loud, I could not even hear his entrance music.
Yeah, right. All I got was, you think you know me. And then, I couldn't hear a thing after that. Came down to the ring, stood up to Elias, and speared him. And then walked away. Edge is medically cleared, by the way. I researched this. He is actually medically cleared by the WWE to have action. But because they're worried that they will re-exacerbate his existing neck problem, he's not going to wrestle anymore. But it means he can come out and take a bump, do a move. He can do things like this again.
Yeah.
He is medically cleared. That is some fantastic news. And what a way to announce it, by the way, than by having him actually come out and do something.
That's thought great. It was one of those things where he cut through caution to the wind, probably wasn't medically cleared, but like, F it, I'm going to do it anyway.
Man,
it was nice to see this morning that he was, in fact, medically cleared to do that. So
this is not the time or the era to go into business for yourself in the WWE.
No.
Like, just ask Big Cass. Don't kick a midget when you're told not to.
No.
Little person. So speaking of little people, Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross, little people,
yes,
versus the Iconics for the Women's Tag Team Championship. Apparently, it wasn't enough that they beat them in the Fatal 4-Way match on Monday, which was apparently Paul Heyman's idea. He was like, well, they'll get a better time to do this women's match on Raw, ignoring the fact that it gives us absolutely no build to it and no real redemption for the Iconics. Well, here was the redemption match for the Iconics, and they came out and they got beaten pretty much straight up by Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross, who were Alexa was cosplaying as frickin' Buzz Lightyear for crying out loud. She still beat them. Although to be fair, they were wasn't Peyton. It was Billie Kay was dressed as Maleficent. So cosplay versus cosplay, Disney cosplay versus Disney cosplay, I suppose. But fine. Why have the
Canada?
Why have the 4-Way on Monday, ostensibly to give them more time, if you're then just going to have a rematch or just a double tap, if you will, on the pre-show, and really put down the Iconics. Like, not only did they go out first on Monday, they got beaten by the new champs pretty handily on a pre-show.
Yeah, this was ridiculous, in my opinion. I just, first of all, you yank them out of the thing that they were. If you remember last week's show, I was talking about how they had snatched Alexa and Nikki away from the feud with Bayley, and all of a sudden it's Ember Moon out of nowhere, and that's one of the things that led me to pick Ember for that match, unfortunately. But now you're immediately going to turn around and strap them with the tag team championships. It makes no sense. I don't get it at all. It frustrates me. It makes me just throw my hands up. We didn't even have the Raw and SmackDown tag matches. Why should I care about the women's now? So you're trying to build up a new women's tag division and somewhat legitimize it, and you're going to yank it off of the people that have worked as a tag team for a long time. I don't get it.
But this is exactly what they did at WrestleMania too. Now it's 2 for 2. We'll leave it on them for a while, have them do nothing with it, and then put it on to the next hot thing. And now we'll see what they do with Alexa and Nikki. Maybe they'll do more with them because Alexa's on this team. But somehow, I don't know. I think this is, again, just it's whim booking. It's not planning. So this was a bit frustrating, but at the same time, I didn't expect anything else once I saw that this match was on the card.
Yeah.
So it was what it was. And to be fair, it was a fun little match.
Sure.
So I will give them that. But that being said, sir, we got to go to the main card here. and the show kicked off. We were actually wondering in the chat how the show was going to kick off because you knew they wanted to have like a good pop at the beginning and an exciting match. What were they going to put first? And we were speculating maybe, Kofi and Randy, they couldn't do that right at the beginning.
Last couple of shows, they've had Seth and Brock come out first.
Seth and Brock would have been strange given the amount of build. It was the biggest match they had. And our question was answered. It was Becky Lynch versus Natalya to open the show, which on the one hand, they had Becky come out first, pop the crowd. She's still popular. Everyone was excited. But then Natalya came out. Natalya's Canadian. This is in Canada. And the crowd was immediately like, yay, boo. What do we do?
Because there's no build, there's no stakes, nobody cares. It doesn't
Yay,
matter what city you're in.
Lynch.
It's like having SummerSlam
Flair,
in Des Moines. You automatically expect them to have a pop for Seth Rollins. Not automatically. He's going to get a pop because he's Seth Rollins.
Right.
So just because you go to a city doesn't automatically mean somebody's going to get that.
So, but here's the thing. I'm gonna throw this out there for everyone who is saying why have Natalya versus Becky. It makes no sense. Natalya's not really that hot right now. She's people are kind of down on her. The one place she's going to get a halfway decent reaction, Canada. And if you're trying to kill time with Becky Lynch and give her another opponent that was going to get a reaction from a crowd, have her face Natalya in Canada.
Yeah.
You'll have an invested crowd, which they were invested. And they will actually invest in Natalya somewhat, which they did. So to that point, it actually made sense to have Natalya, and it was a pretty decent match. Didn't burn the house down or anything, but it was a decent match. They traded submissions. It was a submission match. You had Becky apply the sharpshooter to Natalya. Natalya applied the disarm her to Becky. I was entertained by it. It didn't blow my mind, but I was very entertained by it.
You guys hear me speak all the time about Montreal versus Toronto, and Butters just said it in the chat. Natty's actually from Calgary, Alberta. So they're not big fans of Toronto. Look, Toronto people love Toronto. That's one of the reasons all the other cities and provinces hate Toronto.
Sure, but they still pop really hard for Kevin Owens later, and he's from Montreal, Quebec, Canada. So if they position it as Canada versus the
Kevin
U.S.,
Owens,
Canada's going to...
Natalya, you tell me.
It's like people chanting USA, USA when it comes to anything with a foreign heel. If it's you're in Canada and you're Canadian, oh, Canada. Oh, Canada. So I don't look at that. Now, if you're in Canada and you've got someone who's from Montreal and you're in Toronto, you have someone from Toronto, then you can play that up.
Right.
But that, the same way you can do that here in America if you're in Pittsburgh and you're in Green Bay, Wisconsin. But so the end of this, Becky taps out Natalya. Great. We both picked that. We both figured that.
They had a fun little exchange back and forth, trying to do each other's moves.
Yeah. So unfortunately, because of technical difficulties and you getting your new rig, we already have seen Monday Night Raw at this point, which negates my next question, which is what is next for Becky? We know that now. We're not going to spoil it if you haven't seen Raw. So we know what's happening next for Becky, and it makes sense now to actually have some sort of holdover match like this one to get her to the next stage. So my question kind of has been answered by Raw, which we'll talk about then on Thursday, which means, Nick, let's go talk about a somewhat controversial match, and that's Goldberg versus Dolph Ziggler.
Right.
Started off with Ziggler talking trash, saying Goldberg probably isn't even in the building, and then
he's
Goldberg
not even going to bother coming because he knows he'll get his butt kicked, blah, 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 blah.
Yep. Yeah. And then, of course, his music hits. He does the Goldberg entrance, including Pyro. Pyro was back on this show somewhat.
We got sparklers.
Somewhat. We got the sparklers and the Goldberg entrance.
He didn't do the smoke inhale, though. I'm looking at you, Bill. I see it. That was the one thing I was looking forward to.
Well, you know why he doesn't, right?
Because
it's actually caused permanent damage to his lungs.
Well, I mean, yeah, but what difference does it make now? I've been doing it 20 years,
What's another puff?
Right.
Okay, when you have lung cancer from smoking cigarettes, what's another puff? Is that what you're saying?
Something like. I smoked menthol cigarettes for over 20 years. My lungs are screwed at this point. So
that's it. Hence why you're sucking on your vape over there.
Yeah, at least I don't stink anymore, but I still get my nicotine delivery. Anyway,
we get it, Nick. You vape.
Yeah,
all right. Yeah. So the Goldberg versus Ziggler. Goldberg versus Ziggler was exactly what I think we predicted it was going to be.
Yeah.
Spear, jackhammer, Goldberg leaves. What we didn't expect was another 7 minutes of Ziggler screaming at Goldberg to come back and fight him like a man, and Goldberg coming back and spearing him again and again and again.
What do you make of that? What do you?
Well,
did they have time to kill? Were they ahead
really,
of schedule and they needed to kill 2 minutes?
I mean, here's the thing: they only had 10 matches that we knew of. So yeah, for them on SummerSlam, they did kind of have time to kill, and some matches were pulled a little shorter than others. But this was definitely a let's make Goldberg hot again thing. Let's take a guy who the fans are absolutely hating right now, have him go out there, draw a lot of heat, and have Goldberg go out there and annihilate him.
Yeah,
have him look like an absolute monster again. And he needed to get his mystique back. It's basically all it was, we completely ruined Goldberg in Saudi Arabia. Let's have him get a little bit of that mystique back, a little bit of that heat back. And they did. That's exactly what happened here was, if you're not overthinking it, this was Goldberg coming out looking like a badass again. That's all it was.
Yeah. I don't know if I needed to see that, though. Goldberg,
you may not have, but there are people
Goldberg
that did.
is bigger than that. Like, he's a bigger man than, listening to the taunts of someone the likes of Dolph Ziggler to come all the way back down the ramp just to jackhammer him one more time. Set it up for a match the following week. Set it up for the next pay-per-view. Something. If you're going to continue to book Bill Goldberg.
He looked exhausted with the whole thing the whole time. Like he was just kind of over it the whole time.
Yeah, all right, 90 seconds of it.
You're gonna. Yeah. By the way, yes, it was, but it was also it was 15 seconds too long. They stared at each other for 15 seconds too long, Nick.
Yep. Andy would say the same thing.
Andy would say 25 seconds. I would say 15 seconds. But that being said, this was what it was. If you're a fan of this kind of Goldberg squash match, you got your money's worth. If you're over it, you were probably bored to tears. But it happened. It was exactly what it was and what we thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
And Goldberg is, I guess, arguably back to being good old Goldberg. You're next, squash.
Yeah.
So we'll see if Matt Riddle's next. Moving on to AJ Styles versus Ricochet for the U.S. Championship. Unsurprisingly, the OC at ringside. Can we talk for a second before we get to this match about Finn Balor meeting up with the OC backstage?
Yes, let's.
And all the tingles that I'm sure that you were feeling, and the deep-seated, like, stomach-churning fear I was feeling after your pick'ems, after your yearly breakdown of what you thought was going to happen booking-wise.
Guys, if you haven't heard that, if you're not a patron yet, you're seriously missing out on all the inside baseball. It's don't listen to Ian, okay? It's good stuff. It's good shit. Damn it.
You're missing out on my suffering.
Exactly. But yeah, so I believe me, as soon as I saw them walk up to Finn, like last week, we saw Luke Gallows walk out with his OG face paint, and I went, and then this weekend at SummerSlam, they walk into the locker room up to Finn Balor, and I went, it's happening!
No, it's not. It's not. Not yet, at least. What is happening, however, was a fantastic match between Ricochet and AJ Styles. Not surprisingly, and it wasn't. But the funny thing it wasn't balls to the wall insanity. It was just it was a well worked match, straightforward story with a couple of absolutely insane spots. Thanks to Ricochet, who came out dressed in a full bodysuit superhero outfit as Nightwing, like a Nightwing-based suit. Which, all right, cool. It was fine. I guess don't do it all the time, but it was cool for like one show.
Yeah, break it out for the big four pay-per-views. Yeah,
sure.
I'm down for SummerSlam.
Everyone's cosplaying these
His
days.
First SummerSlam, of course he's gonna one up.
Yeah, that was fine.
Good for him.
But what was great about it was it made him look awesome when he pulled off insane moves, like standing on the ring apron and then walking across Gallows and Anderson's shoulders to Hurricane Rana AJ Styles, which was nuts.
Ricochet doing Ricochet things.
I went straight from watching this show to the bar where I was still, kind of amped up about everything. And I was showing people who don't even watch wrestling, people who are just these poor innocent souls sitting at the bar waiting to be served. I mean, have you seen this? And I showed them a clip of Ricochet running across people's shoulders. And to their credit, everyone was blown away. I was like, that's insane. That's absolutely amazing. Because it is. It's just Ricochet doing Ricochet things. And the match even ended with them doing a crazy thing. Ricochet trying to do a Phoenix Splash and AJ Styles catching him into a Styles Clash.
Yeah.
Come on. That's old school AJ Styles, by the way. That's fantastic stuff.
Yeah. All of those super Styles clashes off the top turnbuckle with Ricochet. I don't know that there's... Like, he's the only one that he's done that with, if I can remember right. I don't remember him maybe Dean Ambrose, if they had something. There's only one or two people that he's actually done that with. And it just takes the right person that knows how to take that move, I guess.
Sure. Yeah, it's not easy. Well,
Man.
I mean, and also, let's call it credit where credit's due. Ricochet also did a one-legged top rope, was it a crossbody or an elbow? Springboard elbow. I don't know, but he did a move off the top rope where he had to do a springboard off the top rope. One leg, because he was selling the other leg. His other leg was hurt. So absolutely nuts. The one thing I have a question here. So Ricochet eats the pin here. Sure. Not surprising. We both called that as well.
Yep.
Is this them putting over Ricochet? Like, Ricochet looked fantastic in this match. Like, if people aren't behind him now as a babyface, then I don't know what they watched. But AJ Styles still won. So are they both getting over here, or do you think that Ricochet should be getting over more, or is this exactly what AJ needs right now? Like, where do you stand on this outcome? Like, should Ricochet have won, or was this the right decision?
You know, I think I texted you earlier in the day on Sunday before SummerSlam going, something in my gut is telling me Ricochet for Sunday. And we had already locked our picks in, so we didn't want to change anything yet.
Yeah, I didn't let you change it, and it's probably a good thing.
Yeah, well, fine. Whatever it worked. It wasn't going to help me that much. Or hurt me that much more. But
yeah, you couldn't have been hurt too much more there.
Yeah. But at the end of I felt like there was something driving me towards Ricochet needing to take this back so that we can continue the rubber match.
Right.
Because they've already traded once, but we need to get to some kind of stipulation for what Clash of Champions is our next one up here in September. Okay, continue to build with these guys. I want to see these guys have a 20 to 30 minute match where they just get unleashed. Like, take the leash off of these two guys and let them do what they do.
It's
and
WWE,
we have not seen
Nick.
that yet.
You're not going to. Don't hold your breath. I mean, honestly, to get a match like this with some really great moves, this is about the best Ricochet you're going to get in WWE, frankly. I'm happy that they're letting him do what they're letting him do. Yeah. But my bigger question here is, okay, fine, Ricochet looked good, but he didn't win. He's not the champ. The issue is that we now have too many similar baby faces. Too many baby faces like Ricochet. You've got Ricochet. You have Cedric Alexander, Ali. You've got guys like that are now coming up on the main roster who can all fly and do incredible stuff, and have this kind of sweet, innocent babyface attitude about them. Does Ricochet kind of fade into that background if he's not getting this push next to, like, across from AJ Styles?
No, and one of the ways that Seth got over was that he kind of defied odds, whether it was a group of people or whether it was just Brock Lesnar himself. And I see that Ricochet is going to need to, like, defy the odds of the OC to get the U.S. title back, and that's the way I would book this. And
if that's an option, if he's still even in the picture for that, one thing. And two, Seth Rollins is a great promo. Ricochet, love him, and you and I both are massive, massive fans of Ricochet. He's not the promo Seth Rollins is. He's serviceable, and he's got some very good aptitude for certain aspects of promos, but that's not his strong suit. So I don't know if the Seth Rollins comparison is entirely apt. He's got to be allowed to go out there and show his athleticism. He got over in the first season of Lucha Underground without saying a word.
That's true.
That's he can do it just by his physical charisma. The guy can get over if you let him.
Yeah.
So
you're saying we should call Conan and have him come manager for Ricochet?
I mean,
all right, never mind. I'm sorry I brought that up.
I mean, hey, or call in John Morrison and have them go bell to bell one night, do 60 minutes, Iron Man match. Anyway, moving on before we start getting ahead of ourselves here. Ember Moon versus Bayley in the We Booked This Why match. This was a god awful build to this match. They didn't set up any real stakes. Ember challenged Bayley. Bayley said okay, and then they traded off finishers week to week where they beat each other up a little bit, but then Ember also got beaten down by Alexa and Nikki one week. Like it was muddled and bungled the entire way to this match. And frankly, I think the match was kind of doomed to fail from the beginning as a result, where, the crowd just didn't care. They were excited for all the previous matches. This is when they're like, cool, time for popcorn. And they were gone. And this was a good crowd. So for them to be this dead for this match, I think showed the lack of interest. And it sucked because not only was I thought they wrestled a pretty decent match. I thought there was some great moves, and I thought that they had decent chemistry. Just didn't get a lot of time. And Ember looked fantastic, of course. We're both huge fans of Ember Moon. She's got the pep she has on her moves, like the crispness is just unbelievable when you see that in the women's division. Yeah. You don't see that a lot. So, it's probably why.
Other than the big spots, I'll say this. They had a few big spots, which were great. The Bailey to belly. Did she ever get an Eclipse off? I don't remember.
She did not get off an Eclipse, which I like because they protected her finisher.
So that's good storytelling. I think we'll continue that one.
Sure.
SmackDown's on right now, so we'll see what happens later. But sorry for doing this over SmackDown, guys. But we'll see what I feel like that's going to continue, though. Or I could be completely wrong and they yank her out from under it again. Either way, I feel like Ember is on the right track. She's getting championship matches. We've been saying for almost a year now that her and Ruby Riott were kind of just treading water until they're ready for them. It's unfortunate.
She's on the right track if they continue with this. She's on the right track if they continue with this. If they let it drop and she goes back to the background again, then no, she's not. Yeah. And I don't think that they did her any favors with this. They didn't, define her anymore. They didn't make her exciting. She was just there. And unless you were really watching closely and seeing that she was a really good wrestler, you didn't care about this match.
Yeah, and other than the big spots, it was kind of slow and plodding and, okay. But it was, and the crowd was dead for it, frankly. Yeah. Toronto was a pretty hype crowd when they got their pop moments.
That's exactly.
But they were also the extreme opposite when they didn't.
Yeah, and this is the first match you and I disagreed on. This is the first one where you and I said, no, I think this is going to happen. And I picked Bailey to retain, which she did with a top rope Bailey to belly, which Ember can sell the Bailey to belly, by the way. It looked great. Yeah. But you were hoping for a miracle for Ember. Didn't come through for you.
I said on the show last week I wasn't going to weight it very high, and it was ultimately my demise for the whole night because I think I ended up putting 9 points on it.
Oh, no, you didn't.
Because I wanted to really just punch it home. Well, it was all in, right? It's putting all your chips on the table. I've got a bad habit of doing that.
You took a flyer, and you'll be sending out a lot of presents to patrons who beat you as a result. Yep. Next up, we had Kevin Owens versus Shane McMahon in a match that I think a lot of people were divided on whether or not they were really excited about it because they're so sick of Shane at this point. But this ended up being pretty much just Kevin Owens coming out, being a massive babyface and putting down the evil tyrant. Feel good moment. Fighting off Elias, who was the ringside enforcer, and ultimately, stunnering Shane to oblivion and getting the win, and then having the hometown crowd go nuts. Yep. So definitely a feel good scenario. But is this what you want to see from Kevin Owens? And do you feel this should be the end of Shane, or will this continue?
This is continuing. We're going full Kevin Owens 316 here.
I mean with Shane.
Oh, who else is he going to do that with? Vince? Stephanie going to come back?
He's headbutted Vince once. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would work. It could work.
If you escalate it, it could be. It could be
listen,
fun.
They already got escalated. They already got to the point where his career was on the line. So,
right.
Like, where do you go from there? So, that's what's interesting to me. Like, what are we going to see beyond a career match? I don't know. We had the what was it? There wasn't that many big. I've seen more action between these two on the weekly shows, I should say. So I thought the match was okay. It didn't blow me away. We didn't see any of the crazy high spots that we're accustomed to seeing from Shane.
Shane did not do the big high spots, but Kevin Owens certainly did a lot of top rope work.
Yeah.
The senton into the frog splash, one after the other.
Yeah.
So I mean, there was some really exciting stuff in this match. I have to say, this is the first match on the card that made me sweat, where I genuinely, the finish, I didn't know what was going to happen, because it's WWE. I'm fired. Okay, well, I'll just figure out a way out of it. Like,
and of our 20 patrons that were in the pick'ems, the only person that picked Shane was the reigning champion at the time, Justice Dutterer.
And he went all in just like you did on Ember.
Yep.
You know what? Fair play.
Had Shane won, he would have wiped the floor with all of us.
He would have won everything. He went all or nothing. And
yep.
given Shane's run, it wasn't a bad pick, which is why I was sweating by the end of this match. I'm like, they could do it, but they didn't. KO did pick up the victory. Real quick, Shane's shoe watch. This was both by Roberto Rosado and Gerardo Garcia. Both the guys called out the Air Jordan 33 Tiger Camos on Shane, who wrestled in his Jordans this time. You maniac, Shane. You maniac. I don't even want to know how much those shoes cost.
$500-$600 easily.
Dear God Almighty, for shoes.
Keep those gators down.
It hurts me when I pay $100 for my Doc Martens. Next up, we had Trish Stratus versus Charlotte. So we follow up a Canadian looking amazing with a Canadian looking amazing, but not quite pulling out the victory.
Yeah.
This was billed as Trish Stratus's final match, and she was going to get one over on Charlotte. Of course, that didn't happen. I think everyone saw this coming, where this was going to be Trish putting over Charlotte on the way out, as you should do.
Exactly.
As should be done, and which she did. And by the way, as much as Charlotte, I feel like, really helped Trish a lot in this match in terms of getting her moves off. And, a lot of Trish's moves require support, and Charlotte was very good about that.
She's kind of a terrible base, though. I'll say that. She's a little too tall and lanky.
Charlotte's a fantastic base, depending on who she's working with. Trish, it's been a while since Trish has worked. Stratisfaction is basically a bulldog where the other person holds you up in the air for 5 seconds. So, which she did, and honestly, it was fine. Trish looked great here, given the circumstances. Yeah. I thought that Charlotte made Trish look great, and Trish definitely had enough in the tank to look great on her own. This was better than I expected it to be, frankly.
Me too.
Both in terms of excitement of the match and amount of stuff that I saw them both pull off. So
it lasted longer than the Ziggler-Goldberg match.
It did, and at the beginning we thought it was going to be a squash where Charlotte was beating down Trish for a while, and then Trish had the comeback, nice babyface comeback, and then Charlotte ended up picking up the victory, and then gave her the ring, and Trish had a nice goodbye for everybody. So
yeah, that was awesome.
It was a feel-good moment, and everyone was kind of like, oh, the Trish lost, and then they were like, yeah, we love you, Trish, for the ending. So it was, it did. I thought it did exactly what it set out to do, and again, did not blow the roof off the place, but was totally stratisfactory, if you will.
I don't know. That'll be good feedback. Guys, leave it. I know we had Dominic and Craig and I think one other one that were there at the show in Toronto.
Yeah.
So let us know in the comments, guys. What was the atmosphere like for those that attended that would like to know? Weigh in. Let us know what you guys thought of the experience live at the show. Because I can only imagine that we, as viewers at home, they probably cut away or cut back to commentary while Trish was doing a lot of her stuff. We got to see a little bit of it, but we couldn't really get a feel for the energy in the place as Trish was kind of saying her goodbyes. They didn't really put a lot of emphasis on that in the show. So,
one more question before we move on from this: was Charlotte the right person to get the rub from Trish?
I think so.
Should it have been somebody else?
No, I think so. Trish was the number one female for a long time. And I think Charlotte is and will be the number one female for a long time. So I think that Becky's going to be fine.
Becky's going to be more like a Lita, basically. Ish. Yeah. Obviously not apples to apples, but ish. Yeah, where she's also extremely, extremely popular, but one's just a hair higher than the other one in the overall picture.
No, I see the comparison. I think that's fair. But yeah, we both picked Charlotte to win here, so that was fine. There were only, I think, 2 or 3 matches that we disagreed on. When it came to the fan pick'ems, when it came to the patron pick'ems, I texted Nick before the show and I was looking down all the picks, and I said, Nick, there's going to be 3 matches that are going to be just absolute bloodbaths. Yeah. It's going to be Bayley versus Ember, Seth versus Brock, and our next match, which was Kofi versus Randy Orton, because those were ones that really were divisive. It was about 50-50 split on who picked what.
except for Seth Brock, which was very heavily weighted towards Brock for the most part.
Yeah.
But this was another one where it was a bloodbath by the end of this match, because people genuinely didn't know if Kofi's going to drop it here and then have to go fight Randy Orton to get his title back. And as it turned out, it was a no contest. It was kind of a, how should we put it, a deliberately paced match.
Yeah.
For the most part.
Plotting,
and then right as it started to get exciting, for some reason they got counted out. And then we didn't even, the camera crew didn't even catch. So Kofi went nuts. Then Kofi went nuts while they were outside, grabbed the kendo stick and beat Randy Orton to a pulp. But we didn't even know why at the time, because the camera guy didn't catch Randy Orton talking trash to Kofi's family that was standing ringside. So we didn't even have the reason for Kofi to go nuts. We were too busy still being mad at them being a no contest and both getting counted out. And then all of a sudden Kofi's turned into a psychopath. We don't know why. And yeah, it was disappointing all around.
Well, as soon as I saw the family at ringside as they were making their entrances, I was like, yeah, oh, God, I'm so glad I picked Randy. He's going to get distracted by – Randy's going to do something to his family. He's going to get distracted. Randy's going to get him. This count-out might be the fastest count-out in WWE history.
I'm curious, was it as fast as the AJ Styles Samoa Joe one from last year's SummerSlam where they had the exact same ending where Samoa Joe came out on AJ's family and they had a count-out?
Yeah.
People hated that then. Why do it 2 years in a row?
My point is the next match where we had Seth do a frog splash onto Brock, they were out of the ring for 10 minutes, it felt like. But they didn't get counted out. So I understand refs' discretion and all of that kind of stuff, but come on, guys.
Nick, are you bringing logic into this?
Yeah, yes. I bring logic into my WWE, which is my ultimate downfall and tragic flaw across all things. So
that will only lead to tears.
Yes.
It would only,
and
trust me.
Last place finishes in pick'ems.
You said it, not me.
Yep.
And the fans were in agreement with us. The whole arena was chanting bullshit at the end.
Yep.
And yeah, I don't know. I want to see this continue and have this escalate and then, have a blow off at some point. But this ending left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths, which is too bad because this should have been a big redemptive moment for Kofi. They did even though they didn't have a lot of build for this, they did a good job of explaining why this match mattered. And the problem is they didn't execute on the continuation of that particular train at the finish of this match.
Yeah.
So it didn't make me excited to see more.
Nope. Unfortunately, I think we're going to.
Yeah, and I'm so glad you picked Randy on this because this was a coin flip match for me as it was for many of our patrons, and thankfully you had me you convinced me to pick Kofi, so I picked this one up too, and that leads us. This is when I left. I left and had to go to work at this point, and I had to pick up all the rest of this later. But I'm actually in some ways I'm so glad I did for the last match because the last match would have had me absolutely pooping bricks.
Yeah.
In terror. But this match would have had me pooping bricks in terror for a different reason, because Finn Balor versus Bray Wyatt. Finn came out to the ring dressed all in nice, pure Irish Catholic boy white. And then out came Bray Wyatt. And Nick, I don't know if we can do justice to his entrance with descriptors. This is going to be one of those moments where we just tell everyone listening to the show, just go watch the damn thing.
If you watch nothing else for SummerSlam, if you don't want to sit through 4 hours of somewhat mediocre wrestling matches, you have to go see this. In fact, they've even cut it together into a YouTube clip for you to do that on WWE.com. I did hear some rumor that they had cut out shots of the lantern.
Yes, understandably.
Because of controversy. Woo! I will say this. I didn't know when his music first hit, before it got into the actual song, you had the lights cutting down, and all you saw was like that blue round glow.
Yeah, you're like, what's up with this lantern?
What the hell is that? And it took me a good 10 seconds to realize
what it was. And I think your reaction was the same as a lot of people's, because you could even hear in the crowd people starting to realize as the camera got closer what was going on. And it was Bray Wyatt holding his lantern up in front of his face.
Yeah.
And as we got closer, we realized the lantern wasn't his lantern anymore. His lantern was now inside a severed head, his own severed head.
Apparently those are his real dreadlocks too, by the way.
His real dreadlocks that he had cut off, and then
Yes.
also like they had done a plastic mask. Tom Savini did a plastic mask of his face
with the
plaster
eyes
cast.
sewn shut.
Eyes were sewn shut, and the mouth was gaping wide open to show the lantern inside. And as he lowered the lantern, you could see the Fiend mask starting to appear out from behind it. Probably one of the most chilling, insane images I have ever seen in WWE history. Like this is an absolutely historical. This is a crazy moment for me, especially because my journey with Bray Wyatt and being on this show is kind of the same. I was in a pit of despair when we started this show, Nick, because Bray Wyatt, who I loved, was in the process of getting absolutely destroyed by the booking.
Yeah, we had just come off the House of Horrors match, I believe.
And I was hurting so bad. We're going through the House of Horrors match and just all the rest of that nonsense. And the downward spiral of me just burying Bray and everything they were doing with him has gone on for the last couple of years of this show. So to have this moment when this entrance and the build to this is also part of it. Everything that they were doing with the Firefly Funhouse and just the slow reveal of all of these things that he's obviously spent so much time and energy thinking about and effort, because this was not just him. This was an absolute team effort. You had no commentary talking during his entire entrance. You had people, the cameras were in the right place at the right time to capture things. The music, his music had been remixed. Now it's this scarier, much heavier metal version of his old song. There was so much, and then not only that, but of course all the detail work on the character itself. He has gone through so much to get this to where it is, and not only does it show, but it absolutely hit a home run. Run over the wall. This was absolutely outstanding. Yeah. And then the thing that we've been talking about on the show as being the big proving point, can the Fiend hold up in the ring when they're under the bright lights? Like, is he just only scary during his entrance or during a promo?
No, it still works.
It still works. He beat Finn Balor from pillar to post. And every time Finn started getting some sort of momentum, there it is, Bray would beat him back down again. He looked like an absolute monster. Yep. And it was fantastic. I loved it.
I'm almost stammering for words because I find it hard to describe. And I'm going to go back to what we said at the beginning of this match. You have to go watch this.
Yeah.
And I think we said it 2 weeks ago on the show. Please, WWE, keep it in your pants. If you can keep it in your pants until WrestleMania and we can have Fiend versus Demon, the absolute walls will crumble as those two entrances and those two beings come together finally.
Oh.
You've only got to wait 6 months.
And you've
4
even
months,
build
7
it
months.
up. Build it up as the Demon being undefeatable. He's a monster. Have him beat some other people on the side, and then have the Fiend, run roughshod of the WWE and be this other monstrous entity. And then, finally have them clash at WrestleMania. Keep it in your pants till then.
You even had Mick Foley, Mr. Hardcore, Mr. Crazy, on the pre-show talking about Bray's use of the mandible claw as the Fiend. Keeping it all kayfabe, right? Just talking about how there's a nerve in there and it debilitates your opponent and all this stuff.
I will say this, having actually put the mandible claw on myself, being a rather big Mick Foley mark myself, having actually applied it to myself just to see, it really does suck.
Yeah.
Now, it doesn't make your limbs go limp or anything, but it does really suck. That being said, I love that in this, he showed the mandible claw is now, he tried to Sister Abigail, and the mandible claw is now his finishing move, which is great because it's so terrifying with that mask and the hair and the way he's moving so much more aggressively now. I like the detail of him like having the one moment that Finn had a bit of a comeback. It was because Bray had almost like, like a bit of a breakdown where the two sides of his personality were clashing or something. It was like something was fighting inside his own head.
And he would do the heel hurt thing with his hands.
Yes.
And it's interesting to note, I believe the hurt is on the right hand, and that's the one he's doing the mandible claw with. So I'm wondering if the heel hand, this is getting a little bit fantasy crazy stuff, but I mean,
no, that's exactly where he's
at. Where is that
at.
going to come into play, right?
That's
I
where
want to
he's
know
at.
what the difference is.
But Nick, he's on that level now.
Yeah.
That's where he's working on that level. If WWE can just sit back and let him work creative wise at this level, This is what we've been kind of asking them to do, is get this creative. Have a gimmick character that's this insane and make us go along with it. Like, we'll invest. People will invest. We invest in a freaking undead wizard and his burned half-dead brother who spouts fire out of the ring posts.
Yes.
Like, we'll go with you on this. Don't worry. You know, and how many other wrestling companies have come along that have given us Goonie stuff, like Su Yung over in Impact, or basically all of Lucha Underground.
Right.
We'll go along with you. Just make it interesting and make it something that is engaging, which is everything that Bray Wyatt's doing. Yeah, tell me an interesting story, and Bray's doing it. I gotta say one more time, I love the fact that Bray has just taken his leash off on this, and basically, if you have a 9 or 10-year-old that's watching wrestling, Bray's coming for your kid. He is gunning for your kid. He is trying to give them nightmares, and he does not give a single crap. That lantern head thing was disturbing to adults. I can't imagine what it did. Like, listeners, if you have a family and you watch the show with your family, I want to know, did your kids have nightmares? Did they cry after this? Because I would imagine that they would. That being said, some of my favorite stuff when I was a kid was the stuff that freaked me out the most. Randy Macho Man Savage getting bit by Jake the Snake's cobra. That scared the crap out of me as a kid.
Yeah.
You know, but it's one of my favorite moments in wrestling. So, you know, was this one of those moments? Was this going to be a moment that kids in the future are going to look back and be like, oh man, Bray Wyatt messed me up. And it was great.
I think so. Because
I hope so.
I'm in my 40s and it messed me up. I'm serious. I thought about it all night. And probably the telling thing that they also put. So the last year or so, they've been doing these watch parties behind the scenes you know, as a fun thing. You know, it's great, right? We do the watch parties for the pre-shows, you know, but they won't show the stream of the show, but they'll put a watch party up on YouTube or Facebook Live and have some superstars that aren't on the card, but they're still there, sit and watch the pay-per-view. You should find the watch party footage of Johnny Gargano watching the Bray Wyatt entrance, the Fiend entrance.
His face was all of our faces. His face was all of our faces. Just that, like, half giddy, like, childlike. He was transported back to his childhood. We watched a grown man get transported back to his childhood on this entrance. It was awesome.
Esmeralda in the chat said her little cousin legit cried.
How old is he? I mean, on one hand, I'm like, I'm sorry for your cousin. But on the other hand, I'm like, that's awesome.
That's exactly the intended response.
It was the intended response. Freak the kids out. Make them terrified. And had come out there and decimate Finn Balor and kill one of their heroes.
Listen, there was a lot of duds on this card. This was not one of them. This was something we've all been looking forward to. It's something that we've all wanted to see, and I think we all had a little bit of reservation and skeptical optimism that it would work out and be good. And I think it's a huge, both exciting, but also a relief that, hell yes, it's amazing, and I can't wait to see what he's got cooking next.
Yeah, I don't feel like I'm overstepping to say this is officially the best thing in WWE.
Yeah.
That being said,
welcome
Nick,
back, Bray.
You know, this as great as all that was, we were all very nervous about the main event, Seth Rollins versus Brock Lesnar for the Universal Championship. And again, everyone just kind of assumed it would be another Brock finish. But instead, we actually had a match. This wasn't just a squash. This was a match.
This was a
Brock
nice
actually went up
reminder
there
that
and
Brock Lesnar can sell and wrestle. And we haven't seen that in a long time.
Sell, wrestle, and tell a story.
Yeah.
By the way. Tell a wonderful story and do it at a really, really fast pace.
Yep.
Like they did not cut corners on this. They did not slow down. The last 5 minutes of this, again, if I had been watching this live and my entire Pick'ems night was on the line, I would have been pouring sweat and shaking like a chihuahua in the Arctic. But thankfully I got to watch it later and knew the outcome. Because the last 5 minutes of this we've been so trained, Nick, to believe that Brock is Mr. One-Hit Kill.
Yeah.
That, you know, and it takes, you know, how many finishes you got a finisher spam on him to beat him. And Seth even hit the stomp twice, and Brock kicked out of it both times. And then Brock kept getting him up in the F5 position, and every time you're just like, it's over. It all of that, and correct me if I'm wrong, it paid off in this match because every time Brock did that, we believed it was over.
Yeah. The only time I saw Brock on the ropes was the high spot off the top ring post, frog splash onto the Spanish announce table. They were outside monkeying around, clearing the Michael Cole table off, and all of a sudden Brock gets out of the way, jumps over to the Spanish announce table, and we get a top of the ring post frog splash. The replay looked fantastic. He was at least 2 times as high as the ring. I don't know how he does that, but it's incredible.
It would have been sucked for both of them. I'll tell you that right now.
He came down on the edge of the table, like right on his ribs too, and I was like, oh no. Hopefully he didn't hurt himself, but man, aside from that, it was an absolute wrestling match. And I love seeing these two beat the hell out of each other, but I didn't know whether to believe that Seth was actually going to pull it off or if Brock was just going to be able to go the distance.
Sure.
I had no way to tell during this match. It was one of the better Brock matches I remember.
It's one of the best Brock matches of the modern era because it's actually a match.
Yeah.
And it was surprising. It was exciting to see Seth find a way out of Suplex City. He's the first guy, I think, who's found a counter for Suplex City. You German him, he's going to land on his feet. And that was exciting off the bat. And there's a lot of exciting moments in this match where Seth took these tropes that we've been conditioned to expect in a Brock match and subvert them.
Yeah.
And that storytelling, that aspect of it is what made this match so exciting, is it kept you believing that Seth might actually pull it off, and that Brock then was, you kept being like, oh, Brock's just going to pop up and beat him. It's what he does. And Brock kept popping up, and you're like, oh, here we go. And then it wouldn't work out. And oh, Seth's still alive. And it would keep you invested in it. It was playing off of those tropes is what made this so exciting. And you couldn't have gotten there without all of this time having Brock just kill us over and over again. Just, another one. Okay. Finally to get one like this, it felt pretty good.
Yeah, it did.
It felt pretty good.
Yes, it did.
But here's the question now, and they've already announced that Brock's not getting a rematch. Is it a relief that he lost, or is the fact that Seth's popularity has been waning for various reasons, is this bad timing to make Seth champ? Should they have pushed this back, or was this the right time? What were your thoughts on this?
So I think it was. I think it's time that somebody else besides Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns, and Brock Lesnar get Universal title opportunities.
Yeah.
I think it's time, right?
Hot take, Howell.
That's about what we've had for about a year now, if not longer. And I'm kind of over it. I'm back to, even though I picked Brock because I've been conditioned to.
You're right.
It worked, Vince. You got me, right? So who's next in line? There's a whole host of characters I think that could come up and challenge for the Universal title.
Geez, yeah.
I'd love to see some of those. A Drew McIntyre, Braun Strowman. Find me the other big guys that are in WWE because there's a lot of them. Probably more here than anybody anywhere else in any other promotion that could come up and challenge for it, or for some of the more enigmatic guys, an Andrade, or somebody that could go toe to toe with Seth Rollins. AJ, Ricochet, dare I say? So I don't know. Yes, I want Brock out of the way. Yes, I don't want to give Brock another rematch. He got his money in the bank. Great. He got his cash in and victory. Great. Seth's got it back. Let's move on and let's do something else.
Yeah, I agree completely. I think this was great booking in theory. I think on paper, having Seth come back and beat him the way that he did after being injured was great. I think just the execution, a couple of times they stumbled. And honestly, the biggest person that hurt was Seth, partially because of his performance, partially because of people's perception of him with the online stuff and a lot of the superficial stuff. But I don't think that WWE did anything wrong in terms of their concept of, having this be the way that Seth takes it off of Brock. Because he just beat him clean. At WrestleMania, everyone was bitching because he had to kick him in the nuts to win. No, he beat him clean here.
Yep.
So he's got that. He's got that on him.
I'll say this as a closing thing. There was a moment at the end of the Bray Wyatt Fiend and Finn Balor match where the Fiend was walking back up the ramp. They cut the lights again, played his music again, stopped at the top of the ramp on the breakdown of the song, and he turned around and looked underneath a spotlight. I would have actually preferred that Seth and Brock opened the show in one of their tropey kind of ways, and we closed out SummerSlam with that.
You never would have happened because that was an attraction match, and it didn't. I know. Here's the thing. I am playing devil's advocate because that was one of the images of the show, and the entire crowd was chanting, "That was awesome."
I'm hard pressed not to use that as the banner for this episode, guys.
They chanted. Yeah, well, there's the banner. Absolutely. Yeah. They chanted "Holy shit" just for his entrance.
Yeah.
And they chanted "That was awesome" after a squash match. That's how good his stuff was.
The beloved Finn Balor.
I agree. I agree with you that yes, him doing the Vogue pose, strike pose, was great. It was a great way to finish off the whole thing. But it wasn't a wrestling match. It was a showcase.
Fine.
There will be more. That was a memorable moment. There will be Trish what should we have had Trish's goodbye be the finish of the show? That was also a nice moment, but it wasn't a show closer. Seth posing with the Universal title after having just beaten Brock Lesnar, the biggest monster in WWE, clean with the pyro that we haven't seen in how long going off behind him. Nick, that's a show closer. Yeah, that's a real show closer.
That's true.
Sorry. That's the real show. Yeah. So there you go. So what was your thoughts on the show overall? I know you said that you felt like there was a couple of duds. Top to bottom, grade the show A to F. Where would you put this show on that scale?
I'm going to go B- only because of the Fiend appearance and entrance and, the way it looked I was doubting how he would look under the lights. In an actual match, but I'm very pleasantly surprised. Otherwise, it was mostly just a meh.
Wow.
I was very underwhelmed with the card, starting all the way at the beginning with Murphy and Apollo Crews. It wasn't booked well. There was so many ways that it could have been a good show, and there was a lot just left on the table for me.
I'll agree. It felt a little bit flat. I actually, it's funny. I gave it a B- just because I felt a couple of matches could have been better and weren't, and I didn't like the lack of booking for exciting change. This didn't feel like this was propulsive to new stuff in WWE. It didn't even feel like it was closing chapters. It just felt like it was just there. I could have easily have given it a B, but the B- just because I didn't feel like it left us in a better place, other than with Bray Wyatt and Seth Rollins, really.
Yeah.
So that's pretty kind of my takeaway on it too. I was entertained while I was watching it though. That's why I can't give it lower than that. I was entertained. There was no point when I was sitting there going, maybe a little bit during Bailey Ember, but most part I was never just like, oh God, kill me. This is unwatchable. This is horrible. So
I think that's why they put Becky Natalia first, if I'm being honest, to get that one out of the way so we could enjoy the rest of them. Had they put that match 2/3 of the way through the show, it would have been dead. Absolutely
that was the best
dead.
women's match on the show. What are you talking about?
Okay. That's
anyway.
Okay. We'll agree to disagree on that one.
We also disagreed on who was going to win what matches, and Nick, I cleaned house with you 10-7 on the pick'ems.
Clean sweep.
Clean sweep.
You and Andy Jessup.
Myself and new patron reigning champion. Patron Pick'em's reigning champion.
New patron Pick'em's champion.
There it is.
Unseating former champion Justice Dutterer from WrestleMania. Andy Jessup is your new Patrons Pick'em winner. Congratulations.
Yes. Congratulations to Andy. And man, he gave me a run for my money. Like, as we said, we had to go to a tiebreaker with him and myself, and he picked 10 seconds off. He picked 1 minute 22 seconds for the timing of the Goldberg match. I picked 1:32. Actual time of the Goldberg Ziggler match, bell to bell, 1 minute 47 seconds. So that is how close it was to Andy actually winning it all, which, man, that was a close one for old Mr. Danger there, but pulled it out one more time. Stay on the top of the mountain.
Yeah,
but,
I make no excuses. I went really big on Randy Orton and Ember Moon because I knew if they won those matches, it would be really impactful, and I would have just swept the floor with everybody else. But it didn't work out for me, and that's the way it is. Luckily, we had one person that actually put more than 1 point on the Seth and Brock match, and I did not come in dead last. So
Close.
I do not. We were going to have some fun on the recap show because I was already thinking about how I could do this. Had I come in last, here's what I intended.
Uh-oh.
Had I come in last, I was going to do this entire show with the Miller Lite beer box on my head. But you all have Trey Davis. Trey Davis, unfortunately, came in last, which means he's the winner of this pay-per-view's booby prize, which is the empty case of beer of Miller Lite that I drank during SummerSlam. I didn't drink all 24. Don't worry about that.
To be clear though, Trey came in last because he went big. He went big. He picked Ziggler to win the Goldberg match, and then he went Ember and Randy Orton and Brock. So he went on a flyer on all of the big.
He also picked Natalia over Becky, which is interesting.
He was going all or nothing there.
Yeah.
So I applaud his testicular fortitude.
Yes.
But that being said, Nick, luckily for you, this was not the only pay-per-view this weekend, and you were actually able to maintain a shred of dignity when it comes to the pick'ems just between you and me, because you did actually clean house over on Takeover Toronto.
Well, yes, Takeover Toronto was, as they always are, one hell of a show. I don't even honestly know where to begin with this, so we're just going to start at the beginning. It was magnificent. I think we all knew that this show was just going to be absolutely magnificent. We opened up with the Tag Team Championship match between the defending Street Profits against Kyle O'Reilly and Bobby Fish of the Undisputed Era.
How many times have the Undisputed Era pulled the curtain on a Takeover show? Just because there's going to put on an amazing match.
Yeah. And kudos to the Street Profits as well for working this match as well as they did alongside the Undisputed Era. But my God, I
haven't seen that many red Solo Cups since I was at a Texas A&M game.
Yeah, I think they taped them, or they were handing them out, or they taped them under the seats or something. Every single person had a red Solo Cup.
What? People don't bring their own The Man signs and Cesaro section signs? I'm shocked, Nick. Don't break kayfabe for me.
Spoiler alert.
But no, regardless, it was a great-looking scene. I mean, it looked like it was an absolute zoo. Street Profits going out in the audience before the match, and then, everyone being like, "Oh, right, they're facing Undisputed Era. We love them too." Hot start to this. But here was the crazy thing. Okay, great match. It was very entertaining. I think Undisputed Era has had better matches before.
Yeah.
This is absolutely the Street Profits' best match. But they won. The Street Profits won.
Against all odds. I never would have guessed it.
What? Yeah, no, especially because we all thought they were going to the main roster.
It's the same thing they did with Viking Raider, War Machine! When they were leaving and going up to the main roster, they retained their championships, and we were just like, what?
Let's hope that that's not the same fate awaiting Street Profits, although they were all over SummerSlam as well, so apparently they're still being used on the main roster as well as in NXT. I don't know. Vince loves them or something because they're very entertaining.
Yeah.
But that being said, it was a shock. It was a shock that the Profits retained. Neither you nor I saw that. We both thought Undisputed Era was holding on to this. But Profits still are your tag champs. Who do they lose it to now? Undisputed Era didn't take it from them? What?
Who's next? I guess. I don't know. Street Profits still your NXT Tag Team Championships. Okay.
Yeah. Hey, can I shout out Dawkins, by the way? Shout out to Dawkins.
Oh, yeah.
Like, usually we always talk about Montez as being like the big, crazy, fun guy of Street Profits. Dude, Dawkins did some work in this match.
He was in there the most. Absolutely.
And looking great.
Yeah. Absolutely. I want to talk about the next match. I can't wait any longer.
You can't wait. I can't wait long.
I'm literally sitting here just... I don't know if I've ever seen a better women's match. I'm going to say that. All hyperbole aside, I don't know if I've ever seen a better women's match than Candice LeRae and Io Shirai. That was one of the best, if not the best, women's match I've ever seen, period. It was incredible. It's the thing that we always hope we get. And most of the time left feeling a little, underwhelmed. But this delivered. This is arguably, short of what happened in the main event, this is arguably the best match of the night, and frankly, one of the best women's matches I can remember in recent memory.
I would definitely say this is in contention for the best match of the night. I don't know about versus the main event. We'll talk about that.
No.
But this was definitely a very, very good, very, very good women's match. I think I still prefer Bayley Sasha in Brooklyn.
Sure.
I still prefer Asuka Ember. I think it's still better than this. This is certainly in the running for one of the best worked women's matches in WWE history. It's the
I hope this is in contention for match of the year. At least on the list, it should be.
I think it will be just because women's evolution, if you know what I'm saying. But that being said, this was a fantastic match. There's no arguing that. And it had, the amount of moves that were pulled off by these two, the variety, the timing, the chemistry, just the cleanliness of it all. Like it was a really cleanly worked match. And can we give a shout out to Io Shirai's new look, attitude, presentation? I'm all about crazy evil Io Shirai.
There were people joking around just to call her Evil Shirai from now on instead of Io. I could get behind that.
Los Ingobernables Intensive Candice. I like it against Candice because Candice can also work a beast of a match, which she did here. But she also has even more, if it's possible, of like a candy-coated sweet girl next door thing going on than Kairi Sane. And that contrasts so well with evil Io Shirai. So it worked out wonderfully for that. Io did pick up the win here. Not terribly surprising. We both called that. But this was Candice's most major match to date. Do you think this woke people up on Candice, or are people still sleeping on Candice LeRae?
I think people were, up until this point, sleeping on Candice LeRae. I don't think they are anymore. I think you can tell that she's been, she did a tope slingshot DDT that was just like, it's something you'd see from Johnny Gargano. So, oh man, there was so many moves and spots in this match, and so much back and forth in the match itself that I was just overwhelmed by how good this match was. I can't even get my words out right now.
You wanted to talk about it. You can't even get your words out.
I can't. Look, obviously this was to put over Io Shirai. Evil Shirai, as we're going to call her from now on. But yeah, more please. Or is this the end? Do we now send up Evil Shirai after Shayna Baszler to take it off of Shayna?
That would be so much fun. Heel versus heel, I kind of like that a lot, but we'll see. All I know is after this, you've got to look at. I love the fact that they've now officially got Io Shirai as being, in my opinion, probably the most exciting women's wrestler in their company, if not Shayna Baszler. Because I don't know if I'd call Shayna exciting. Shayna is a beast, and I love her, but Io is actually electrifying.
Yeah.
With what she does.
Yeah.
So I'm very curious to see what they do next with both of these women after this match. Especially considering that this had to have opened a lot of eyes to both of them, or at least I would hope so.
Yeah.
But that being said, the next match also, I think, opened some eyes. Velveteen Dream versus Pete Dunne versus Roderick Strong for the North American Championship. Are we just, at this point, spoiled by the fact that these three guys are wrestling in the same company and they had a match on this show? Are we just spoiled by this?
I don't take it for granted if that's what you're implying.
Okay, that was what I was implying, yeah.
Yeah, just the excitement of seeing these three guys, even leading up to it. Pete Dunne coming out, I popped so hard last week or the week before when he surprised everybody, and now he was entered as and made it a triple threat. And Velveteen Dream and Roderick Strong were just, no,
not him,
no, anybody but him. That just made the match for me. So it was extremely well worked. These guys were just fantastic. Velveteen Dream's 23, 24 now, maybe. The ceiling is so high for that guy.
So's Pete Dunne.
Right.
He's also a baby. They're both babies. And Roderick Strong, he's not exactly, he's not young, but he's not long in the tooth either.
No.
All three of these guys are beasts. The thing that I think I want to just rest my description of this match on the most, because a lot of these NXT matches are harder to describe than the main roster matches. This was a triple threat where it felt like a triple threat. You didn't have two guys doing a singles match against each other while the third guy rested. This was a proper three-way match where it was a three-way dance. And almost always there was some sort of interaction going on with all three guys. It was perfectly booked in that sense, where there was always something for everyone to do. And they never sold for so long that you were like, where's so-and-so? It always felt like they were doing things with each other. There was a constant story being told. And it was basically just a fun match. You couldn't take it too seriously, because there was even a lot of little winking stuff in the match about it just being fun, like them just having a total slap fight in the middle of the match. And Pete Dunne, looking at Roderick Strong and Velveteen Dream, kind of like just throwing punches, and Pete just shrugs his shoulder and starts, wades in there with the lamest punches you've ever seen in your life outside of Shane McMahon. Like it was, right. It was just fun. It was a fun match to watch. And I have to say, I was a little bit surprised that Velveteen Dream won and retained his title.
Obviously, I was not.
You were not. You picked that, you animal, but
yep.
I was a little surprised by that. But at that same time,
we all worked ourselves into a shoot over Undisputed Era. Draped in gold and all of that stuff, right?
Brother, I was so worked by the end of our description of this takeover, our pick'ems. Yeah. I was so worked. I was toast. I should have just made my picks before the show instead of like trying to do it in the middle of the show and trying to outthink myself. That was horrible. But this was another fantastic match. A lot of fun. And I look forward to seeing what they do with Dream next. I don't know if they continue with just straight up Pete Dunne, or if they find someone else for him to feud against, whether that's Dijak or Keith Lee or someone else who's up and coming. We'll see.
I don't know. Dijak would be very interesting. Dijak versus Velveteen Dream.
By the way, I actually, and I'm so sorry, I did mean to mention this earlier, and I feel bad because, again, I've spaced the name that WWE gave him, but Punishment Martinez.
Damian Priest.
Damian Priest. Thank you. I can't stand it. Punishment Martinez. Such a better.
No,
Damian Priest.
I would like it to be Damian Priest.
All right, this is Damian Priest, and I'm here to. So I'm actually gonna do this announcement in Damian Priest's voice.
Okay.
Bray Wyatt, need a pal.
Oh.
Can you imagine Damian Priest with Bray Wyatt?
Yes, I can. Oh my God. By God.
The question is, Bray, do you want to heal them or hurt them?
I can do both.
I could do both. It puts the lotion in the basket. Anyway, small aside. Nick, you did get this one. However, we both got the next one. Shayna Baszler versus Mia Yim for the NXT Women's Championship. This was tough because it came after the previous women's match and the previous triple threat match and the opener and the Matt Riddle and Killian Dane brawl thing that happened in the middle of the show, where Matt Riddle ran to the ring and called out Killian Dane, and they had a brawl and they got separated, and they went through a table, and it was fun.
I don't want to take too much away from this match, though. I hear what you're saying, and I mostly agree with you. But this was a fight. This had a different feel. It was slow and intentional and plotting and all of that stuff. But there was a fight. They were hitting each other hard. It was a little stiff, and I like that. They beat the hell out of each other.
I'm gonna agree with you. I think that like we say with a lot of these Shayna Baszler matches on the takeovers, if you had a Shayna Baszler match and you're like, I didn't really like it, go back and watch that match without the rest of the show around it.
Yeah.
And you'll probably be like, that was a good match.
Itself, removed from the whole takeover dynamic.
Yeah. Remove it from the excitement of the other matches and the way those matches are worked.
Yeah.
These are good matches. Was it, a barn-burning, exciting match? No. Was it as good as Io Shirai and Candice LeRae? No. I will fully admit that. But it was a really well-worked, as you say, hard-hitting, technical match. And it told, I thought, a really good story.
Yeah.
It told a fantastic story. Shayna lost an arm in this match. Mia Yim took out her arm, and Shayna was not able to apply her finishing move.
Never did lock in the clutch.
She couldn't lock in the Kirifuda clutch. So she had to transition into a triangle choke using her legs and that she's done that a couple times in matches where she's transitioned, where she's shown that she's so good, she's so capable that she doesn't have to use the one way of beating you. She can transfer into another one and take you out that way.
Yeah.
And
what was the one where she was pulling her own hair or something to lock the clutch in?
Yeah. Oh, God. I love stuff like that. And it's details like that in her matches I think people underappreciate. And that was the case with this match, where people underappreciate the fact that Shayna is just such a beast that she was able to say, okay, she was even trying to use her dead arm to lock in the clutch at one point. Like, she transitioned into another finishing move that's just as effective. Like, that's what a beast champ should be like. Where they're she's vulnerable. Mia Yim took it to her, took out one of her arms, and you know what? Shayna's just so scary. They even said, Mia Yim, you're taking a chance by trying to tussle, like actually get on the ground and go grapple for grapple with Shayna. And sure enough, it ended up costing her.
It did.
That was the story. It was a great story. I thought it was well told.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it just did not contrast well with the other matches on the card.
And it didn't turn into a win for Mia Yim. Shayna Baszler retains the NXT Women's Championship.
I just saw in my notes here, and it reminded me of something. There was one big issue I had with this match.
Okay.
And that was that Mia Yim hit a top rope code blue on Shayna, and Shayna kicked out. I didn't like that, and I thought it was it actually ended up being a bit of a foreshadowing of my issues with the main event.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Which let's talk about right now, Nick.
Yes, we need to, because we're going to be here for a minute. Johnny Gargano versus Adam Cole. We knew it was effectively a 3 stages of hell match where each of them picked a stipulation for the first 2 falls, and then William Regal picked the third one. And was it officially announced before the match? I feel like there was a backstage segment that I'm not remembering clearly.
During the pre-show, William Regal cut a pre-taped announcement saying, I've got something very special for the third match. I want there to be a decisive victory. The winner's going to be the winner, and that's that. And I could tell you, but I'd rather show you because I really don't want to give it away. Yeah. But I also am really excited about it. And they showed flashes of what appeared to be the Asylum cage from the Ambrose Asylum match between Dean Ambrose and Chris Jericho, which, covered in weaponry and barbed wire on the top and all that kind of stuff.
Mitch, the houseplant, was in there, apparently.
Was Mitch there? I didn't see Mitch.
I don't know. Somebody said it in our live chat.
I think they were kidding.
Okay.
I think they were joking. I think they were
well played.
I think they were joshing with you, Nick.
Yes.
That being said, we knew at that point it's going to go to 3 falls. The question is just, how do we get there? And it was not how we would have expected. And frankly, I wasn't totally sold on it, because the way that they did it was that Johnny Gargano gave up the first fall by allowing himself to be disqualified. Because the first one was Cole's match. He said, I want a straight up wrestling match. And Johnny said, okay. But at the end, Johnny grabs the chair, beats down Cole, and just kind of shrugs. The ref goes, all right, first match to Adam Cole. And Johnny Gargano goes, cool, and continues to beat the crap out of Adam Cole. And then beats the crap out of him for most of the next match, which was a street fight. Street fight match? Yeah, street fight match, not a hardcore match. So
Butter said he thought they were lowering the triple cage of death from the Ready to Rumble movie. I don't even remember what that is. I would
have popped harder for that, actually.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
Especially if David Arquette was still on the top of it. Anyway, but this is the thing, is that right off the bat, Johnny Gargano's down, 1-0, and so we know he has to win the second one. So at that point, the second one went on for a long time.
Yeah,
it was almost like a 15-minute second part of the match, and frankly, it just I kind of tuned out to it. At a certain point, they were hitting all these big finishers. I'm like, all right, well, Johnny has to win this. Otherwise, what's the point of all this build? And sure enough, at a certain point, Cole tapped out in the Gargano escape, and there we were. We were off to the races.
Yep.
And we were all saying, how do they do this third one? We don't see a cage. There's no cage hanging there. They had curtains way up in the arena.
Brilliant.
And they never showed them. They did a great job of hiding it. Maybe not from the live crowd, but from us for sure. We had no idea it was there. And damn it, they lowered that damn cage around Gargano and Cole. And props to the way they booked this, where Gargano in this street fight started pulling out tables and throwing them in the ring like he was going to use them. and they never got used. And he tapped out Cole in the middle of the ring. They never got those tables used. Well, when that cage came down and there's no way out because the barbed wire, they're trapped in the cage with tables and all the weapons they need. Brilliant.
Well done.
That was very well done. And then for me, it really went off the rails. And Nick, I want your opinion on this because you said you loved this match. I thought this turned into absolute just finishing move spam to the point of gratuitousness, where we just had Canadian Destroyer after Canadian Destroyer. We had dudes just taking absolutely hellacious moves. And that's been their stock and trade with their matches, is kicking out of the most ridiculous crap. And in the last one, the 2 out of 3 falls match, it was fun, but it was the first time we'd really seen them do it. And in this one, it was just kind of like, oh, for crying out loud, he's going to kick out of another one. At least for me, this is where they lost me on how much crap they were kicking out of.
How many Rainmakers does Okada throw on average in his matches? Isn't that supposed to be his big finisher? I'm not trying to do an apples and oranges comparison here, but I'm just, And you
shouldn't, because they're not, because the difference between New Japan and this is that they have 2 levels. Most of them have 2 levels to their finishers. Okada has a running Rainmaker, but the true Rainmaker, the stand ripcord Rainmaker, that's one and done. Very few people kick out of that. Like if you look at Dean Ambrose now, Jon Moxley in New Japan, he has his old Dirty Deeds one, which he's now calling Death Rider. Now he's calling
Death Rider, yeah.
But if he gives you his old one where it's a double underhook DDT, that's stage 1. But if he lifts your leg up and he makes it an elevated one, that's the true Death Rider. That's death. You're done. You're 1, 2, 3. So it is another thing. Like Kenny Omega would get hit with a bunch of Rainmakers that weren't the true Rainmaker, sure, and you kick out. But you get hit with the real one, pretty much everyone goes down.
There's every now and then I like a sort of superhero showdown of sorts.
Yes.
And I think that's what we got here. For
the 3rd time in a row.
Sure, suspend disbelief and enjoy the ride. That's kind of what I was in for here. We've known it was going to be this. I'm not surprised by this. I was surprised by the Asylum cage. Hell yeah, I was. Very pleasantly surprised. I wish they had used more of the weapons. I wish they wouldn't have been zip-tied on so tight so that they had to struggle to get them off. I wish him going up there and spending 5 minutes to cut a piece of barbed wire would have actually gotten used.
Which wasn't used, and so that was the other thing was, some of the use of the weaponry was a little bit underwhelming. I like that they used the fire extinguisher. I like the nod to Triple H with the sledgehammer coming out. But there was stuff that you were sitting there going like, oh my God, they're going to get hardcore with this. And he goes up and gets, like you said, there was the bag, and I was sitting there waiting for the bag to come out because I was sitting there going, oh my God, they got thumbtacks. If this ends with thumbtacks, this will be the greatest match of all time. And then they get that bag and they upend it, and it's some wire cutters and a couple of other little knickknacks.
Pliers and handcuffs, yeah.
Even the crowd went, oh.
Yeah.
Oh,
what else
man.
do you put in a burlap sack besides thumbtacks?
Obviously not that.
No.
I mean, yeah, and they even tried to sell it.
Even the Triple H Batista match, it was a toolbox that he got the
They
pliers
called that out, and they were like, remember what Triple H did to Batista with the pliers at WrestleMania? I'm like, yeah, neither of them have a nose ring that makes it freak, or an eyebrow ring, whatever it was.
But it was a red toolbox, and that makes sense. You get a tool out of a toolbox, not a burlap bag that everybody knows is thumbtacks.
I like you're coming over to my side with this. All right, so let's continue. And then Johnny Gargano takes one of those wire cutters up to the top and has a hard time cutting off a piece of barbed wire, which ultimately he and Cole end up on the other side of the top of the cage on a little very conveniently placed platform on the top of this cage with tables below. So we know they're coming off onto the tables already, but then he doesn't even do anything with the barbed wire, and then they just go flying off the top onto the tables. And by the way, don't even really hit the tables. They like glance off of one, and it was one of the most hellacious falls I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Oh, God, horrible fall. And Cole's back was all tore up. But what was the point of the barbed wire then? Why have all this stuff? We were joking about it at the time. I actually even made a tweet online. I forget, it was Bruce Mitchell or who it was, said something about how, Vince was like, oh, we're not a blood and guts company, proceeds to have a match with all kinds of implements of destruction. And I said, where there was no blood.
Right.
or guts. Like, yeah, Vince can continue to say that because you have a hardcore match, essentially, with all this weaponry, and no one got busted open. Except for accidentally with Cole in the back and like a little contusion on his forehead during the second part.
And inside of that, of the dynamic of a 3 Stages of Hell match. Like, you're going to tell me neither one of them got busted open in any kind of way in a 3 Stages of Hell match that ended in a hardcore Asylum match?
One of my favorite matches of all time, and I know it's a purely nostalgia thing, but one of my favorite matches of all time is Stone Cold Triple H in a 3 Stages of Hell match. It's one of my favorite matches of all time because I had never seen anything like it. And I genuinely didn't know if they were going to go to a third fall. I assumed they would, but they did it in a way that I didn't expect. And then it was so brutal by the end of that. Like, both those guys acted like they were almost dead at the end of it. And they were covered in blood.
Yeah.
And now I understand that obviously WWE that's not their stock and trade anymore. I get that. But this is a match. If you're ever going to do a little bit of juice, this is the match to give us a little bit of juice. You don't even have to have it be like Dustin Rhodes in the middle of the ring in Vegas. You could, a little trickle, whatever. Like, all they needed was to have Johnny Gargano take Adam Cole from behind. Wait a minute, that sounds wrong. Take Adam Cole,
phrasing,
and wrap that barbed wire around his forehead from the back, and just pull him back a little bit so that Adam Cole's screaming, "Oh, it looks horrible." It doesn't even really have to like pierce his flesh or anything. It just looks really bad on the top of that platform. And then Adam Cole can like turn around and grab him. They both go off. That right there is a finish. To me, this felt like once they got to the third stage, first of all, I was waiting for the third stage the entire time. And I'll call a spade a spade. Both these guys tried to kill each other for our entertainment. So all the damn props to them. But in terms of how this match was laid out, we expected the third fall the entire match, and it took too long to get there. By the time that we got there, we were expecting them to go to the next level. And instead of going to that insane next level, which I think people were expecting, they didn't meet those expectations and instead went back to their finisher spam kind of stuff where people were kicking out of tornado DDTs on chairs and stuff like that. And it's just like, really?
Yeah.
You would never, like, you guys have both tapped out or gone down for the 3 count on much less than this. So that's my spiel. Why did you think it was the match of the night?
Because it was. Did it have things that were lacking? Yes. This was an absolute spectacle. That's what it was there for. It was winner take all, the third Cole versus Gargano 3. All of the things were there. It had stakes. It was for the championship. It was a 3 Stages of Hell match. It had all of the things that we complain about that matches in WWE championship matches typically lack. It had every single stake that you could think about, short of a career match. They did attempt to end each other's careers, but it had all of that. So the spectacle of it and the build towards it was brilliant. I loved it. And with the whole meta aspect of of Adam Cole's prophecy of Undisputed Era being draped in gold, the other two teams had already lost, or the other 2 matches were all. So now, if he didn't, they wouldn't have any gold. So there was all kinds of drama around it and the spectacle of it. Could they have done more? Absolutely. Did they do enough for me? Absolutely.
I'll tell you this. It was definitely one of the matches of the weekend, despite my nitpicking. Like, call a spade a spade. It was a absolute spectacle. You're completely right. And it was 2 guys who are some of the best wrestlers in the world doing what they do better than anybody else for nearly an hour.
Yeah.
So it was better than anything on SummerSlam except for Bray Wyatt and maybe Seth Brock, which was a lot of fun for a completely different
Seth Brock.
Totally different reason.
Yeah.
But I think I was more excited by Seth Brock, to be honest with you. Like that got my blood pumping more. And
you didn't even watch it live, so that's interesting.
And I didn't even watch it live. I can't even imagine if I'd seen Seth Brock live. Yeah. Anyway, but my point is that, spectacular match, but we're so spoiled by NXT.
We are.
That at this point, I can look at this match and say, it just wasn't quite there because they went too far. They went too far. Yeah. And yet, in some things, they didn't go far enough.
I agree.
So what do you think about TakeOver overall? Like top to bottom, rank this on the TakeOver scale.
Never disappoints. The only one I'm giving, there's nothing on this card that I'm giving it. This is a full-on A for me. I'm not. There's no negative knocks for me other than the little tiny, minuscule nitpicks we just made about the main event. Everything else, I think, just fully delivered. And I think people misunderstood the point of the street fight-esque style of the Baszler and Mia Yim match. That was just a stiff fight. It was not a wrestling match spectacle thing like we saw throughout the rest of the night. But yeah, solid A for me on Takeover as usual. When do we ever knock down a Takeover? Honestly,
I'm about to, and I'm going to give it an A-, to be honest with you. But here's the thing: I will never give. I can't in a modern era. I can't think of a Takeover I would give less than an A- to.
Yeah.
Because they are without a shadow of a doubt, they are the best wrestling shows currently being put on. Period. Hard stop. And that's been front to back. NXT, I think is even better than New Japan. Like New Japan, just because they have matches that are not like in between all the they may have better like individual matches, but there's lots of fluff in between a lot of their shows.
Yeah.
And every once in a while you get one like Dominion this year, which is kind of a disappointment. NXT does never their takeovers do not disappoint.
Well, they only do them like once a quarter. We only get like 4 of them a year. So. Oh,
absolutely. No, hey, the fact of their timing and their schedule and the rest of it being a factor, that's something else. I'm just saying, as far as if you put one show next to all the other shows, just the shows you're getting, they're putting on the best shows consistently across the board. And that may have to do with their schedule, but
absolutely, the
end result is the end result.
You'll get no argument from me, but I was able to secure a victory for Takeover. Imagine that. 4-2.
You saved yourself from another Nia Shrine edition by winning one of the 2 pay-per-views this weekend. So congratulations.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Yes.
Yeah. Way to go, buddy. Still haven't taken a whole weekend yet, but you will. You will one of these days.
One of these days it will happen for me.
One day you'll be a real boy. Yes.
Well, guys, thank you very much for hanging in there. Those of you that watch live, thank you for joining us a little bit late. We had a little bit of some technical difficulties as we get the whole new streaming setup. You guys can see my backdrop is a little bit different, but Nia's still there. She's still there. We're changing things around. I hope the stream looked really stable today. So I was watching the performance the whole time. It looked fantastic. Fingers crossed. I think we might have solved it. We might have solved it. Guys, as always, thank you very much for hanging out with us. Definitely come over and join us in the Busted Wide Open discussion group on Facebook. It's the hub of our operation. It's where you want to be. Don't sleep on the Gleam giveaway that we've got going on. It's posted at the top of the discussion group, pinned to the top of our Twitter feed, and you can find it in the profile of our Instagram as well. Definitely sign up for that. All you have to do is follow us everywhere and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Free merch. Who doesn't love free merch?
Tell everyone you know to subscribe to our YouTube channel, by the way.
Yes.
At least if you want to see us humiliate ourselves.
Yes, as soon as possible. You can see at the bottom of the screen there, we got about 50 days to make at least one of them happen. You got about 2 weeks to make both of them happen. So let's get it on. Let's go. You can follow us on Instagram and Twitter at BWO Podcast, right here on YouTube, where we are live every Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern, at 5 p.m. Pacific. As well. YouTube.com/BustedWideOpen. And patrons, we love you guys. Thank you very much for your support. Absolutely love that you give us a little bit of your hard-earned money every single month just to ask us some questions or listen to a bonus episode or two. Means the absolute world to us. It helps us pay some of the bills and get things done over here. But I'm Nick Howell. You can find me on Twitter at DataCenterDude.
And I am Surrey and Dangerous. You can find me on Twitter at Surrey and Dangerous.
But by God!
Would somebody stop the damn match?